Aloha! You are listening to Inside the Desert Oasis Room, episode number 181. This episode is sponsored by the Tiki Bar T-Shirt Club, where their monthly T-shirt designs pay tribute to a Polynesian bar or restaurant from days long past. Each design is available for a limited time and will never be produced again. For the collectors out there, be sure to check out their subscription program, where they offer a discounted 3, 6, or 12-month plan, or you can always buy shirts one at a time. For more information and to check out this month's shirt, visit tikibartshirtclub.com. Today we chat with artist Kat Reeder. Kat is a native Floridian, transplanted in Hawaii, and creates some of the most beautiful island-inspired pieces of art directly from the island of Oahu. Learn about how she got her start as an artist, her transition from Peru to Miami, how she ultimately planned her move to the Hawaiian island of Oahu, and what's in store for the future of her art. As always, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as we did bringing it to you. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider helping us with your support during this challenging time. Stop by desertoasisroom.com to check out our merch or leave us a tip. We've got tiki mugs, t-shirts, and pendants available right now. Any purchase or donation, no matter the size, is totally appreciated and helps keep this podcast coming to you every week. Okay, let's get into this. Grab a Mai Tai and join us inside the Desert Oasis Room with the one and only Kat Reeder.
Inside the Desert Oasis Room.
Aloha, this is Kat.
Kat, this is Adrian.
Hey, Adrian, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Excited to talk to you.
Awesome. I'm glad that you were able to join us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to join you too. Very, very excited.
Awesome. Me too. How's life in Hawaii right now?
It's actually pretty good. You know, things are starting to open back up.
Okay.
And weather's cooling down. That's always good. But yeah, it feels like, it feels like spring. It's like everyone's starting to go out and, resume life. It's starting to feel a little bit, like back to normal. Just a little bit, but it's pretty good.
Is there parts of the island that are still in quarantine, or is everything kind of...
No, I think we're slowly getting out of it. I'm not sure about the restrictions. I think they've let up quite a bit, but it's all, slow and in phases. But
right.
Everyone seems to be following protocols here. So, I think we're going to be all right.
Have they already started allowing visitors?
No, I believe that's the next thing. Yeah, that.
Okay.
That they're working on some requirements for people to come in, and I think it's going to be that way throughout the country, where you need to be able to prove that you're COVID free and all of that. So I think they're still working on details, but hotels are everyone's gearing up for tourists coming back soon.
Yeah, it's the new normal, I guess, for the next few months. I did my monthly COVID test today, and of course came out negative. And every time I do that, it still makes me nervous. Even though I have no symptoms, I'm just trying to be safe and
Yes.
Yeah.
So. I had to have one myself, and it was not very comfortable.
I know.
It was not it was an easy process, but not the most comfortable process. But yes, and then you're like, please let it come back negative. And, yes, but I'm glad you're good. Glad everyone's safe.
Me too, and likewise. Well, thanks for joining the podcast. Okay. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a long time now because I am a fan of your work, and I want people to know more about you. So for our listeners that don't know who Kat Reeder is, our friend Kat is an artist, and you are from Miami. Is that correct?
I am from Miami. I was raised there. I was born in Peru.
Okay.
Grew up in Miami, and then somehow made my way out here.
Yeah.
Twice, actually.
Yeah. So let's talk about your background. So did you get started as an artist when you were in Miami?
Well, it's like, it's one of those things where you're artistic your whole life. And I was
Okay.
always the art kid. I was
Okay.
always the artsy kid. And it was just kind of something I did, like you just kind of do it. And it was kind of like a need to draw.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I kind of taught myself everything because I didn't, art school wasn't going to be like an option for me. And, my parents wanted me to go to college and, being the good immigrant kid, you want to go to college and please your parents and have a
Sure.
real career, real career in quotes.
Right.
So I wanted to be like a lawyer or a psychologist or something to make them happy. And so, yeah, I mean, my plan was to have, like I said, like a normal career. But art was always in my blood. And it just was kind of accidental. I just kept ending up in the art department at college.
Yeah, yeah. Were you more of just a creative person, or were there any kind of influences around you that made you go down that path?
Absolutely. So when I was in Peru, we had a lot of Japanese cartoons and American cartoons. Those were like the two main things. So I was just enamored with anime, and then we had like the Thundercats and all the cool ass She-Ras and all that.
Right.
And I was just obsessed. And we didn't, this was the 80s in Peru, and it wasn't the easiest time in Peru. It was very chaotic back then. So the U.S. and America was something that I always dreamed about. It was like this fantasy land. So I actually started drawing because somehow I thought I'd get myself into Disney. Like as a little kid, like
Sure.
my dream was to be a Disney artist because Disney was like everything, for a little kid
Yeah.
in the 80s. Especially in South America.
I was going to say, especially for a kid that's not even in the United States, they see Disney as this magical place, right? Well, they call it the Magic Kingdom.
Yes, absolutely. And my dad actually came to the U.S. first. So for a year, he kept sending us, Disney everything. And I was
Wow.
just obsessed with Disney. And I want to work at Disney, live near Disney, like do everything by Disney. So I just kind of, we didn't have, like I said, it was just a very strange time in Peru at the time. So I just escaped through art, and I wanted to just teach myself how to animate. So it sort of came out of just being in this fantasy world. I just wanted to escape life there.
I love that.
Time. Yeah. So, and I just started by just seeing what I saw on TV and drawing and trying to learn. And then toy packaging too. Like, remember back in the
Yeah.
80s, packaging actually had real illustration, right?
Yeah.
Like the packaging was art in and of itself. And I just loved that. I loved packaging. And so yeah, it just sort of became in my fantasy world. Like I was an artist and I was going to work for Disney, and I was just sort of practicing for some career that I
sure.
had. Yeah.
How old would you say you were when that started?
I mean, I started probably between 6 and 8. That's really when I became aware that drawing was getting me some attention because I would draw and it would make people happy, especially at that time when things were a little bit darker. Drawing made other kids happy, and making them cards made them happy, and sending my dad letters with drawings.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I would draw him things. Instead of writing him letters, I would just send him drawings.
Oh, I
and
love
that
that.
would make him happy. And I thought I got early on like this, drawing, creating things makes people happy, makes them feel. So I just kind of got that really early, like this positive reaction from people. And there was something about it that just felt like, this is what I want to do. I don't know how, but this is what I want to do.
The reason why I ask how old you were is that I've found through talking to people on this podcast that the creative type of person seems to have known from a very, very young age, or have been influenced from a very, very young age, the things that they want to do creatively, and it shaped them as they grew up, right? It's not something they discovered later in life. Not saying that doesn't happen to people, but typically the creative person like yourself, who's an artist full time, was influenced somewhere from their youth.
Yes, that is true. And it's a need, right? Like I
Yeah,
was doing, not knowing exactly it was just, I just assumed everyone did that. Like everyone
sure.
dances, everyone listens to music, and everyone draws. You just assume that this is just part of being human, right? So you just do it, and you can't do anything else. Like that, it's a compulsion. Like that's what it was. It was a compulsion. Like I couldn't stop drawing on everything.
Yeah, you very
Uh,
much knew that it was who you were at a young age.
right.
What was some of
Yes.
the early stuff that you were drawing? What were some of the favorite topics?
So I started with, I said, drawing Disney characters and all of that, making people happy. But I actually remember this the other day because when my father came, like I said, a year earlier. And of course, at the time, getting out of Peru and going to the U.S. was not an easy task. So
Hmm.
you would tell people you were going to the U.S. and they'd say like, yeah, sure, yeah, right. You know, everyone wants to go to the U.S. And people wouldn't believe me that my dad was in the States and that I was going to go eventually. Like no
Right,
one, kids at school are kids at school, right?
right,
So
right.
they're like, oh, sure, whatever. So I made up this comic. I made up this comic strip. I don't know why comic strip. It was called Seven Sisters, and I made up these seven blonde sisters and told everyone that these were my American sisters, and they were waiting for me in the U.S.
Right.
For some reason, the second graders all bought it, but so it became this thing where kids. It took a life of its own. So kids at school were asking me like, "Oh, what are the seven sisters doing this week?" So
Right.
I started drawing these like stories that I totally made up, and
Oh, that's awesome.
I bought myself. I really started to believe that I had seven blonde
Sure.
sisters.
Yeah.
So it's so stupid, but it really started as storytelling.
Well, you were a
And
child, right? And we lived through our imagination.
yes, and I think the whole drawing women, the whole
Yeah.
idea of drawing women came from that, from making up these women, like making up these big sisters.
Yeah. You still
Hmm.
have those drawings by chance?
No, my mom threw out a big
Oh,
binder of
no.
all my stuff, and I'm like, no, yeah, I had a binder with everything, and she thought
Wow.
I didn't.
Oh, what a bummer.
I know, being the, if you're Peruvian out there, you know what I'm talking about. Being the good Peruvian mom, she cleaned out everything that was
Yeah.
a memory, thinking, oh, she doesn't need it anymore. Time to move on.
Yeah, my mom did that with a lot of my stuff too. And
God,
not even just my creative stuff, but just my toys.
why do
I,
they do that? Right? Why?
I can't do that with my kids' stuff. I mean, I ask them and
Yeah,
say, hey, do you still want to keep this? And there are things that they have sentimental attachment to that I may not know about. And
exactly.
there are things like that from my childhood that disappeared that I wonder, oh, did my mom just throw that out? It's just
Right.
one day it was gone, you know?
Exactly. And yeah, and she, and they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to keep things
Yeah, I
tidy.
get it.
Being a mom now, it's like, oh, do we really need this right now? Like, do I need another set of Legos? Like, is he even going to miss the set of Legos?
Right.
And I'll get rid of stuff, but I get it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we
when you're
can't keep
an adult,
everything. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, but that kind of stuff, you know, and especially now as a father, the things that my kids draw, that
Yeah.
holds more value to me than anything, than an old toy that they have or anything like that. And I still have stuff that they've made for me. I mean, my son is a senior at UCLA, and I have stuff that he's made for me when he was like 3 years old, you know,
That's beautiful.
drawings from when he was 2, 3, 4 years old, when he was in preschool, and you know,
Yeah.
and same for my daughter. You know, that stuff is just so invaluable to me that there's no way I'll ever get rid of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it'll be for them too, because it's like when you do find something from your childhood that you created, you feel like it's a piece of your own personal
Oh,
memory. It's
yeah.
like a gift to yourself.
It's a part of who you are, and it's attached to everything about you: your soul, your personality, your history, your upbringing, your
Yes.
background.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's a great point. Yeah, I'm doing the same with my son too. And he's showing some artistic capability. So I'm like, okay, good. I'm gonna keep all this, and yeah, hopefully someday it'll mean something to him too, and he'll be glad that I did.
I'm sure that you influence him very much with the art that you do.
Yeah, I try. He's starting to become my little critic now.
Oh,
He's
really?
only 7, but I'll ask him, "Hey, what do you like this or you like that?" And he'll, it's funny to start to see that, not training, but he's developing that eye. It's very cool.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about your work today because you mentioned that you have a lot of girls in your artwork. And let me start by saying I love it. You have a very island influenced style, lots of hula girls, and they look very much like the kind of art from the 60s and 70s.
Oh, good. I'm glad yes.
Where does that style and theme come from for you?
What style does it come from?
Yeah, like the 60s and 70s stuff. Where does that style come from for you?
Yeah, so, that I always shopped at vintage stores, right? Always. And it came out of necessity when we first arrived to the States, and then it just became part of me. And so I spent a lot of times at vintage stores, boutiques, thrift stores, Goodwills, all that stuff. And always going for the artwork. I would always zero in on artwork and poster. Like I would always go to books, like book covers from the 60s and all. I loved the idea of finding artwork that felt like it had been lived in, like that's like it had been through something, like the edges were frayed. And I always loved. There was something about art illustration from the 60s, actually 50s through 70s that were just seemed really, I don't know, it just seemed very like lived in. That's the only way I can. Very organic, and there was something about the way the art looked, the illustration looked, that just really spoke to me. Especially the way the women were illustrated back then. Everything was exaggerated, hair, curves, makeup. And I just loved whenever I would run into something at a thrift store that had a illustration from then, like a movie poster. Yeah. Right? Something like that. Yeah. And I started to collect all that stuff. And I just loved the coloring and, just the fading with time. I just loved all of that. And then one day I discovered Alphonse Mucha, which is all the Art Nouveau stuff, which is a totally different genre and different time and all of that. But there was something about that work and the way that the lines flow and everything that really always caught my eye about that. Okay. And then I started to research this artist and learned that, he was one of the very first commercial artists, in the sense that back 100 and some years ago, he was creating posters for, what would be concerts at the time, right? Like plays, and he was creating these posters, commercial posters that people were ripping off the wall and stealing because they were just cool, right? Yeah, yeah. And he was really one of the first artists to have that notoriety, Okay. And I was like, man, 100 and some years later, you still see his art. It still moves you. And that's the power of commercial art. That's the power of art that's accessible. And then I thought about all of the art that I had found in thrift stores and thinking, somebody created this stuff. Yeah. And 50 years later, 40 years later, it still means something. It still has a soul. So my style came from my love of vintage art, because I wanted to create something that felt like it had been around for a while. Like it's classic. Right. She could exist now. She could have existed back then. You just don't know. Like I wanted to create something that almost looked like vintage, and that's where it came from, wanting to experiment with, can I create something with this type of soul?
You said a few things there that really kind of rang a bell for me. So art that has a soul is the main thing that really I've kind of taken away from that, which is an expression that I really, really love. Earlier, you said something about how vintage packaging was all artistic. And it so is, because if you look at packages today, I recognize fonts that are being used where I'll think, oh, that's Bauhaus font, or that's Comic Sans, or that's, like, I recognize the fonts. So there's less creativity, it seems, today in a lot of the packaging that we see. And no diss to our friends that do this for a living, because the friends of ours that do this for a living are the artists that actually make it better, right?
Absolutely.
And the stuff that you say, like when you go to the thrift stores or the vintage shops and you see all this old packaging, it is art with a soul. It is something that looks very much lived in, and I put that in air quotes, right? Very much having history, and and it's just so different from the art that you see today, and the packaging, I should say.
Yes, I completely agree, and you know, I was thinking about this one time. I was watching this documentary about toy packaging, and there used to be a time where toys and everything, when they were designed, there was no cartoon associated. There was no a lot of times toys were being released for the first time, and the packaging had to tell the story. The packaging had to sell you on the world of this toy.
Right.
So, and then cartoons and everything came after the fact, after they had become so popular. Now it's the other way around. Like, we're creating toys around existing TV shows and cartoons. Therefore, the packaging is not really as important because they already have clout. They already have a following.
Sure.
And so artists used to play a more important role because they had to be able to reach the child's imagination. Like, you had to be able to grab you with the packaging.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately lost at the moment.
Yeah. Your particular style is very much tropical, Hawaii, you know. So let me ask you this. Did your art style draw you to Hawaii, or did Hawaii draw you to your art style?
Hawaii. Definitely Hawaii. When I started this particular style, because I was always drawing, but when I found this style, I was actually in Michigan for 2 years while my husband was in grad school. So we ended up in Michigan, and I was actually in the basement in our apartment, in a basement, under I don't know how many feet of snow. It was a really bad winter, and I'm looking out the window. It's all white, and it's beautiful, but it was not what I was used to. I mean, I'm from Florida, and then it was not what I was used to.
Dreaming of sunshine.
And and I was dreaming of another. Like, I was trying to get myself mentally again, using my art as a way to escape, mentally trying to escape to another world. And I created this drawing called Hawaiian Girls, and it's these two girls. Kind of looking on. It's very simple. It's just two girls together, and there's Diamond Head in the background. And I only used like 4 colors. I said, okay, I'm going to make something simple and warm. And I was just imagining myself in Hawaii. And I created that piece of art. And it made me feel something. It had like, it made me feel very warm, and I was like, I can't wait to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And that's one of the pieces, probably my number one selling piece to this day. Still very popular. And it came from my wanting to be in Hawaii, me imagining myself in another place.
I love that.
So definitely Hawaii has always been part of my story, even when it wasn't really a reality for me. I always dreamed of Hawaii, right? Like paradise.
Yeah.
Especially at the time when I was a little kid, and being in the complete opposite part of the world, right?
Yeah.
Like South America and Peru at the time was a very different world, and it was nothing like the tropical paradise that I live in now. So it was heaven to me.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When you moved to Hawaii, were you living in Miami?
So we actually went to Michigan, and then from Michigan, our next stop is going to be Hawaii.
Okay, so it was from Michigan.
Tour, but yes, it was Miami, and then Hawaii by way of Michigan. But yes.
So a stupid question then. I mean, what brought you to Hawaii instead of just going back home to Miami? Was it the fantasy?
It was the fantasy, and we had actually come here on vacation 10 years prior, and that's when I fell in love with it. I happened to make a comment to who was my boyfriend at the time, before we got engaged. I said, hey, this is beautiful. I see myself living here. and it kind of sparked something in him, like, well, shit, sorry,
That's okay.
I want to go there too. And
you can say that.
okay, so he's like, hey, let's do it. And I was like, yeah, you're 22, you're like, yeah, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And kids, and it just became this idea in our head, like, we're going to go. And it was kind of like the coming to the U.S. thing, like, yeah, sure. Like, we didn't know people believed us,
Yeah.
but it became this life goal of us. Like, we said, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And it actually took us about 10 years to make it happen.
Okay.
But it was in the making for a long time.
Yeah. So once you guys put it in your mind that you were going to go, you started setting things into motion.
Exactly. Yes. So by way of husband going to school, making sure he was able to have a career, me kind of trying to get my graphic design thing going. And so everything, the Hawaii thing was a plan for a long time. And then, of course, there's the saving money part. So, it was just, we would come here, like almost every year we would come here. We would always make sure to come here just to make sure we always had a foot here and knew what was going on here before we moved.
So what was that transition like when you moved there? Was there a culture shock of any kind?
Not really a culture shock, because we try to come here as often as we could afford to do. And by the time we came here, we were just so happy. I mean, the only thing that hit me was one day, just the distance. Especially close to our first holidays.
Right. Yeah.
That's the first day that it hit me, like, oh, we are far away. And
it's not close to anything.
No. And especially when we were staying at the time, we were staying on the west side of the island. And, it's a beautiful part of the island, but it feels like you're on an island.
Sure.
It's all ocean. It's gorgeous. But it was one of those days close to the holidays where I said, my family's on the other side of this ocean. And it scared me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the only thing is that and that's what makes Hawaii the paradise that it is that it's so detached from outside influences, I should say.
Yes.
I don't know if that's really the right thing to say, but when it was first discovered, it was a true paradise. There were no diseases, there was no pollution, there was no trash. I mean, it was a beautiful place. It truly was a paradise. And keeping it separated from things like the mainland or anything else is kind of what keeps it as mystical and magical as it is. But then there's that negative, is that you're so far away from your family and everything needs to be shipped there, so everything's expensive.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a positive and negative to it. How different is Hawaii from Florida for you? I mean, they're both tropical climates, and you deal with hurricanes and all that.
In 2016, we actually went back to Miami, and then quickly turned the ship around and said, no, we made Hawaii. But we went back to Miami because, the pricing, and we thought, okay, well, let's try to, buy a home and do all of that. And we went back to Florida. And then, it just, because I asked myself the same question. Isn't it similar? Isn't it just the same, right? It's still tropical. You still, I made that argument in my head, and we're like, let's just go back. Yes, it's similar in the sense that, especially on Oahu, you have the metropolitan, you have the city. If you're into that, that's pretty similar. Weather-wise, the weather's much better in Hawaii because, anyone who's Florida understands what the heat is like in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
So it's similar. The only thing is culturally. How do I say this? Miami tends to be a little more East Coast in terms of the attitudes, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it wasn't for me, and I'm from there. And, it was just a little bit more, because you have, it's a big city, right? So people are going to naturally just be a little more insular, and have you with any big city, you have crime and all of the other things, and but just the warmth wasn't the same. The warmth that I that I had grown accustomed to in Hawaii was not the same there. I wasn't finding myself connecting to people. And like I said, that's just me. You know, I think Florida's beautiful, and Miami is an awesome city if you want to go and have a great time. Yeah, that's the place to be. But I think for me at the time, Hawaii had become my home because of the culture.
Sure.
And, you know, we talk a lot about the aloha thing and aloha culture and all that, but that really is a thing. Like
it really is a thing, yeah. And what I was going to say is you had just gotten used to the aloha spirit.
Yes,
yeah.
and the sharing and the, you know, if you're new to town, you know, people want to be your friend and people embrace you. Whereas I found myself being, I guess, in a way, new to town there, you know, in a sense. I didn't find the same connections as quickly. So I didn't connect with my old hometown in that way.
Sure.
So yes, culturally, I think here, although it is more expensive than Miami, yes, it is more expensive. But I think that you don't feel as stressed out. You don't feel that you have to watch over your shoulder all the time. That really is what I missed.
Yeah.
Being able to trust your neighbors and feel like, you know, it's still a city, but it's not. It felt a little more. It felt more neighborly.
There's there's more a sense of community.
Yes.
Yeah. When you moved there, did you notice if Hawaii had changed your style of art, if at all?
Yes.
It did.
As soon as I went there and I decorated my place, you know, my sister came over one day and she's like, well, you know why you miss Hawaii so much? You never left, right? Like you never left. Everything was Hawaii. Everything, right. The way I dressed, the way my house looked, everything was, And I found myself just looking for artists and people and events, everything that was Hawaii oriented and Polynesia oriented. So it had changed the way I saw life. Changed the way that I expected people to behave and the way that I expected people to be with other people. And definitely the style. Miami's art scene is a lot more urban. It's different. You know, it's a little more. It's different than what you see here. So I wasn't sure at times that my art would really fit in because it was just a different theme. You know. It definitely is a different art scene. You know, you have the Art Basel, there's a lot of pop art. It's very exciting. Mm-hmm. It's different from what I'm used to.
So is there a style of art that, I mean, your style has very much its own personality, but is there a style of art or medium that you haven't worked with yet or tried yet that you want to try your hand at?
Yes, I want to do more 3D stuff, and by 3D I mean like more like sculptures, figurines.
Okay.
Like, I want my art to go to the next level. Like I want it to actually pop off the page. So I started with these 3D shadow boxes that I've been doing, and now I'm like I want to do stuff that's more you know, more layered, more you can touch it, right? So either figurines or relief type things or mural or sculpture. Like, I don't know. I'm right now what I would like to do is animation, of course. Mm-hmm. That's the next thing. It's like I want to learn to animate my work. I feel like they need to come alive.
I think so too.
Yes, I'm like I'm dreaming of the. You know, that's actually I'm staying up at night trying to learn.
Yeah.
After all these programs, because I want to bring them to life somehow.
Well, you know, as an artist, and to stay creative and to keep those creative juices flowing, there's so much to learn, you know, so that will probably be something that you do until the day you die, right?
Yeah.
Trying new styles, new mediums, experimentations, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. I think if you're a creative person, yes, you're always looking for a way. Your creativity is always looking for a way to come out.
Always. Yeah. So I don't know how familiar you are with some of the fun questions we do on the podcast.
I'm not, but go for it.
Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit here. We're going to call this segment Getting to Know Cat Reader.
Nice.
All right. So these are some fun questions that I like to ask my guests. Okay. And so let me start with the first one. This is probably the most asked question that I throw out to all of my guests.
Okay.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be? And I can help you with some of the answers that I've heard along the way.
Superpower, shoot.
So some of the answers I've heard along the way, my answer for myself is I'd like to be able to eat whatever I like without getting fat. I've also heard, and these are all some of my favorite answers. I've also heard I'd love to be able to communicate with my pets. I'd love to be able to teleport so I could meet you at La Mariana for happy hour. I'd also like to be able to speak any language.
Okay. But I think mine would have to be time travel. Just to go back to thrift stores.
Oh, yeah.
Time travel and go back to thrift stores in the 60s and see what kind of cool stuff. I would just want to go and be me, but just in another time. And get all these drawings and illustrations and total packaging and like see it in real time.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So in the 80s and 90s, I used to go thrifting all the time because I was super poor. And I didn't go in there looking for anything but clothes. It was always just clothes. But if I could go back to all those times that I went thrifting back then, I would look at the shelves and see what's there. Right. So that's one of the things I'd love to do if I could time travel. Another thing would be I'd love to go back to some of these old Polynesian-styled restaurants and bars and see what they were like, what they really were like. See Don the Beachcomber at International Marketplace. See, walk into Trader Vic's while he was still mixing cocktails behind the bar. Walk into Tiki Tea and have Ray make me a Ray's mistake.
It'd be cool. Back when people used to have tiki parties, and it was just what they did, and dressed up and went to these restaurants, and that would be so amazing to be able to just see what it was like in real time. Like now you have to kind of search for that stuff. Yeah. But to be at a time where it was just part of your world, that's what I would love to see. Yeah,
I'd love to see old Hawaii too.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Cool. Okay, next question. What is your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve. Oh my goodness. Right now, I say my pet peeve is all that cancel culture stuff.
Okay.
You're getting a little uppity. Yeah,
I get it. Yeah, I've never thought of that as a pet peeve, but yeah, that's pretty much a thorn in my side too.
Yeah, I'm finding myself rolling my eyes more and more when I hear things.
Me too. Well, my biggest pet peeve is when I open a medicine cabinet, pantry, or anything like that, and none of the labels are facing forward.
Oh my God, that's very specific. That is very specific. But you know what? I get it. I'm like that when I can't find something. You're like, everything. I know I left it here. Yes.
Oh, okay. I need Advil. I open the cabinet and every medicine bottle is turned the other way. I have to turn them all one by one just to find the Advil. That's very
specific. Right. It makes sense though.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, what's another pet peeve of mine? When people leave garbage on the counter and the trash can is white.
Right. So there you go. See, now we're rolling.
Like, do you not see it?
Right. Okay, next question. If you could spend time with anyone, dead or alive, real or fictitious, who would you choose?
I'll have to say Frida Kahlo.
Okay, that's a great answer.
Yeah, she seems like a cool lady. I think she'd tell me to just relax and chill out and just, I feel like she'd tell me to just, get over myself.
Keep you humble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm answering these questions along with you. I think that I would, dead or alive, I would probably choose like a great grandfather or someone that I have not met that is an ancestor of mine, just to learn about my family and where they're from.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you have any specific talents that run in your family?
So that's a great question. So, and it's going to be funny coming from me talking to an artist. My great grandfather was an artist, and he used to create large paintings, large oil paintings that he made a living off of. And then he influenced my father, which was his grandson, and my father was an artist, and he went to art school and all that. And my father actually ended up becoming an architect by trade because his parents said, you're not going to be able to make a living being an artist.
Right.
And so my father was like, well, what's the closest profession that I can do that's, right, that's close enough to art? And he thought, I'll be an architect. And he ended up becoming a theme park architect and did a lot of things in theme parks. So so that kind of is the common denominator with my family. Although what's funny is, so my father was an artist, his grandfather was an artist, but my father's father, who's the one in between, right? He was a baker, and he owned a line of bakeries in the Philippines, which maybe that comes from, where I love to cook. But I think that my creative side comes from my father and my great-grandfather. Although I'm not an artist by trade, but, I appreciate the question. So
no, yeah, I asked because I feel like some families have like a trait. Like for me, it's art. Like the both my brother and sister are artists. Like it just seems to be a gene somewhere, and I would love to go back and find out who the first person was.
Are there other artists in your family?
Yeah, not professional artists, but it's my brother and sister are both excellent illustrators as well, and my dad is pretty good, and so it seems to run in the family of cousins. It's in the family. It's just the only one that's doing it professionally.
So there's an artistic gene in there.
Somewhere out there, there's a gene, and it's like I would like to know who and where it comes from. That'd be really interesting.
That would be interesting. Have you ever done any of the 23andMe or Ancestry.com kind of stuff? Yeah,
I've done the ancestry stuff, and with the Latin America stuff, it's still a little bit patchy, because not everyone's on the bandwagon yet.
I've done the ancestry stuff, and I couldn't find any information any farther back than what I could find on my own. And I was born in the Philippines, so everyone before me was born in the Philippines. So there are no records here of my ancestors. It's all overseas.
So yes.
And who knows how good they kept those records. So
although with the Philippines there's a big Spanish connection too, and from what I understand is the Spanish were one of the best record keepers when it came to genealogy and stuff. So maybe there's a whole treasure trove.
That's good to know.
Out there of your family history.
I could dig further. I just haven't gone down that path yet. So, okay, next question. So, as an artist, I know you're doing what you love today, but if you weren't doing what you're doing today as an artist, what do you think you'd be doing?
I own my own store. I would love to own a vintage store, some sort of. I would love to own a vintage store or music store, something like that. I think I'd still be doing something where I'm bringing something with soul to people.
Okay.
Yeah, or a lawyer. People tell me I should have been a lawyer.
They're so different.
Or maybe I would have actually made my parents happy and become a lawyer.
There you go. That's the thing is we always want to please our parents, right? Even into our adult years.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the best piece of advice that was ever given to you?
Best piece of advice, artistically, I guess I approached an artist when I first arrived to Hawaii. I went to one of the art festivals here, and I zeroed in on one artist whose style I liked. And I went up to him and I said, I want to be you. How do I get to be you?
Yeah.
And he said to me, the only thing I could tell you is don't draw for anybody else. Make art for you. And essentially the money will follow, right? Like do it for you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and it didn't become relevant to me until much, much later when I hit not a snag, but a wall artistically. And I was like, I'm doing the same thing. I needed a change. And then I realized, like, I'm making art for other people. I need to do it for me. So I had to take a break. I had to take a break and really think about that advice. And I started to draw for me again. And then people connected to it. So it's a really good, which I think applies to a lot of things in life. Like you got to do whatever your talent is. You got to do it for you first, and then the people will connect.
It's a great piece of advice because then what you produce as an artist comes from your soul because it's for yourself, right? It's not something that you're making because you're trying to appease a customer. It's coming from...
We're trying to follow a trend, which is happening a lot right now, unfortunately, with art. But yes, you're doing it because it's makes you damn happy.
From who you are. Yeah. Okay, so last question. What's on your bucket list?
Bucket list. Okay, 3 things. So I would love to do a collaboration with a major brand. Like I would love to have a licensing deal or a collaboration with like a clothing brand or, something cool like that, or a makeup brand or something. I'd love to I want to do the poster for Tiki Oasis.
Oh, there you go.
Big one. Yeah, I want to do I want to be part of that world, and I want to represent that event and that community of people, And then the last thing is I would love to have a solo show in Peru. I would love to someday have a
homecoming. Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Of all my work and show people like, what, like I left, but I'm bringing something back that I want to put back into the community here. And I would love to have some sort of exhibit.
Oh, how cool is that? That would be such an awesome thing to happen.
I would love that. I think it'd be good for my parents too because they left, and it's like I would love for them to see what we created together. Yeah,
I love that. All right, so before we wrap, let's tell our audience, what's the future of Cat Reader Art? Are there any projects or anything that you want to share?
Yeah, so right now I'm doing commission work, so I'm doing a lot of personal portraits for people. That's something that for the last year, I've been really trying to promote because people are really loving the portraits, and that's a part of my business that I want to keep growing because I'm really, really enjoying working personally one-on-one with people. So more portraits in the future for sure. I'm also going to be, growing the product line, like coming up with more wall decor, more home decor type stuff that specifically for tiki folks and that.
I love it.
I really get into that, and hopefully if things get back to normal next year, I want to make the rounds in the tiki circuit. Like I want to be part of these events. I want to meet people and really be part of this in a real way. I want to get together with other artists and be part of that. Like that's what I'm really looking forward to next year. Meet you all in person.
Yeah. Do you ever get out to California at all?
I haven't. That was something that I was hoping to do this year. I really wanted to get out there and because man, I can't wait to go to California.
So if you are able to get to any of the events out here next year, like if things get back to normal and you're able to travel for Tiki Oasis or Tiki Caliente or any of the other events out here, I would love to host you at the Desert Oasis Room for some drinks and food and merriment and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, I would love that too. And I've been wanting to meet you in person for quite some time now. And fortunately for us, with current modern technology, we've been able to interact on our phones and Zoom and all that kind of stuff. So I already feel like we've met, even though we technically haven't, right?
Yeah, it's true though, right? Yeah, because it feels like we've met, but not in person. I think once I'm able to get myself out there, I'll be able to recognize you and people, and hopefully we can give hugs by then.
I know, right?
Really connect. Just I'm so grateful to everyone I've met so far. And COVID has been tough, but it also has been a really happy time for me in terms of meeting new people in the Tiki community. So it's given me an opportunity to reach out and really focus on the community. And I can't wait to meet people in person and just to feel people's energy, because yes, we talk on the phone and Zoom, but there's something about sharing a drink.
Oh, totally.
Right?
And if I can get out to Hawaii in the next 12 months, I had a trip planned this summer, which I had to push out to this winter, which now they're saying don't even try to travel there this year. Just wait till next year. So if I can get out there sooner than later, then maybe we can have a drink at Skull and Crown.
Oh my God, yes. That would be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Same thing, I'd love to host you and have you over at our place, and
and I'd love to go. Awesome. If people want to buy work from you or commission you or just look at your stuff, can we throw out a website and your social media and all that stuff?
Yes, social media is at Cat Reader Art, and then my website is catreader.com.
And I'll include links for all of that in the description of this episode.
And actually, if anybody wants to see samples of some of my portraits, not everything's up yet, but for a sample, you can go to Cat Reader Portraits on Instagram.
Oh, very nice.
Yep.
Alrighty, folks, there you have it. Thank you again, Kat, for taking the time to sit down with us on the podcast. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. Mahalo so much. And a big kiss and a big hug to everyone who's listening. And I can't wait to meet you all in person. Aloha and have a wonderful week.
Aloha. And for all of our listeners out there that want to leave Kat a shout out, stop by our group page on Facebook, Inside the Desert Oasis Room. Alrighty. Thanks, Kat. Have a good day. And we will chat again soon.
Yes. Aloha.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye. And aloha.